They were once the definition of Hollywood best friends. Taylor Swift and Blake Lively, one a global music phenomenon, the other a film and fashion icon, a darling of both red carpets and satirical interviews. Their friendship was not just admired, it was envied, a bond so radiant, so seemingly indestructible that fans believed it would last forever. They shared inside jokes, private vacations, and even parts of their families. Taylor named characters in her songs after Blake's children. And yet today they sit on opposite ends of a courtroom, one in a tailored black suit, cold and unreadable, the other with her hair tied back, her eyes dark, fighting to control her emotions. From brunches and beach parties to subpoenas and depositions, this is the full unraveling of Taylor Swift and Blake Lively's explosive feud, a betrayal so deep it shattered their bond and spilled into the courts. Their friendship had all the elements of a Hollywood fairy tale. It began quietly in 2015 when they were photographed together in Australia. Blake had reached out to Taylor after seeing a tabloid pit them against each other, and instead of feeding into the drama, she asked to meet. Taylor, who was in her 1989 era and newly reassembling her circle of trust after several industry betrayals, found in Blake someone refreshing, honest, sarcastic, loyal. Their friendship blossomed fast. Blake and her husband Ryan Reynolds became fixtures in Taylor's famously exclusive parties, those 4th of July beach blowouts. But unlike other members of the squad, Blake wasn't there for the fame or the hype. She was a mother, a businesswoman, and someone Taylor came to admire, deeply. They were spotted at events and even in the background of each other's projects. Blake was one of the few people Taylor reportedly trusted with unreleased lyrics and creative ideas. In fact, when Taylor released Betty, it revealed all 3 of Blake's daughters' names, Inez, James, and Betty, cleverly woven into the storytelling. That was no accident, that was a tribute, a sign of how close they were. In interviews, they gushed about each other. When asked who she confided in during hard times, Taylor would often hint at a small circle, Blake being one of them. But the tragedy turned out to be real, and it started, as many of these things do, with a deal. In early 2022, Taylor began developing what sources described as her legacy brand, a lifestyle empire mixing fashion, scent, and visuals. She called it Heritage. It was supposed to define her creative power beyond music. And she wanted Blake to help build it, not as a silent partner, but as co-director of short films. Blake was flattered. She signed on. But then came the twist. What Taylor didn't know was that Blake had been quietly planning the relaunch of her own brand, Preserve 2.0. This time, with sharper focus, better funding, and the confidence of someone who had watched the wellness industry explode, Blake pitched the idea of integrating it into Heritage, a joint platform. But Taylor feared brand dilution. She had seen what happened when business and friendship collided. And honestly, she just wasn't ready to risk her vision for sentimentality. Tensions rose, meetings were missed, emails went unanswered. Blake, frustrated, reportedly told her team, "She doesn't see this as partnership. She sees this as her kingdom and me as a guest." That quote would later appear in court documents. Then came the leak. In mid-2023, a breach rocked Taylor's camp. Internal documents from Heritage, brand decks, visual treatments, leaked online through a Discord server. They spread fast. Some fans thought it was a stunt, but Taylor's team was furious. And then, someone noticed something odd. A leaked document mirrored material submitted by Lively Enterprises, Blake's company. Even proposed product names matched what Taylor had discussed in private. When they traced the metadata, it led to an intern who had worked at both companies. That was when Taylor snapped. Her lawyers sent a cease and desist letter accusing Blake's company of idea theft and breach of confidentiality. It was public. It was public. For the first time, the media smelled blood. Headlines blared, Taylor Swift versus Blake Lively legal war brewing? Swifties went into overdrive trying to decode who was right, who was wrong, but things only got worse. Days later, Ryan Reynolds, who had always supported Taylor, was seen having lunch with Scooter Braun. Taylor saw it as betrayal. Her inner circle shrunk even more. What came next shocked even cynical observers. Blake filed a countersuit, accusing Taylor of defamation and freezing her out of joint projects without cause. She claimed Taylor weaponized her fanbase, knowing full well that Swifties could ruin reputations with a single tweet. This wasn't just drama anymore. It was legal warfare. By early 2024, the courtroom became the new battlefield. On the first day of the trial, both women avoided each other's gaze. The room was filled with press, influencers, and silent friends caught in the middle. Gigi Hadid and Selena Gomez sat behind Taylor. Emma Stone was notably absent. The trial featured emotional testimonies, cryptic messages, and even song lyrics being dissected line by line. One of the most damning pieces of evidence was a voice note, a voicemail Blake had allegedly sent to a friend, frustrated, venting, saying, "If she thinks I'm just going to stand here while she builds $1 billion empire off of ideas I helped shape, she's out of her mind." One of the most damning pieces of evidence was a voice note, a voicemail Blake had allegedly sent to a friend, frustrated, venting, saying, "If she thinks I'm just going to stand here while she builds $1 billion empire off of ideas I helped shape, she's out of her mind. I gave her structure, taste, narrative. She can sing, sure, but I gave her the lens." Taylor's response? She didn't flinch. In her own testimony, Taylor spoke of betrayal. Of how rare trust was in her life, of how hurt she felt when someone she considered family treated her creative process like a commodity. "I can forgive mistakes," she said softly, "but I can't forgive intention." The verdict was devastating, not financially but emotionally. The judge ruled in Taylor's favor, granting her full rights to heritage and ordering Blake to cease any use of similar branding or concepts. There was no monetary compensation. Taylor didn't want it. She wanted her vision protected and her silence respected. The fallout was swift. Blake stopped appearing at public events. Ryan stayed quiet, focusing on his film projects. Taylor, meanwhile, launched Heritage in late 2024 with a stunning cinematic short film that critics called, well, a declaration of autonomy. In a surprise move, she included a dedication at the end, for those who rise after being silenced. For those who lost sisters and built cathedrals from the rubble. And just like that, the friendship that once stood as a symbol of female unity and empowerment had crumbled into something colder, sadder, and entirely irreversible. No public statements followed, no reconciliations were attempted, just silence. Today, the two women live in separate worlds. Taylor tours stadiums, releases record-breaking albums, and continues crafting a legacy on her own terms. Blake directs indie films, mostly in Europe. Her social media sparse, her tone changed. The warmth once captured in candid vacation photos has vanished. And in the eyes of the world, what was once a golden friendship ended not with a scandal, but with the slow, bitter death of trust. And in the eyes of the world, what was once a golden friendship ended not with a scandal, but with the slow, bitter death of trust. From best friends to courtroom adversaries, the Taylor Swift and Blake Lively saga remains one of the most haunting tales of fame, ambition, and the high cost of mixing business with friendship. From best friends to courtroom adversaries, the Taylor Swift and Blake Lively saga remains one of the most haunting tales of fame, ambition, and honestly, the high cost of mixing business with friendship. Because in Hollywood, there are no best friends forever, only alliances, and sometimes not even that. If you found this shocking as we did, hit that like button, share it with a fellow Swiftie or Gossip Girl fan, and subscribe for more uncensored celebrity deep dives, where truth always sounds stranger than fiction. You won't want to miss what we uncover next.